Welcome. These will be my thoughts on Arrow Season 2, Episode 12, Tremors. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for the episode and the ones leading up to it. Another episode I absolutely love. So I'm gonna start with there is just one deleted scene for this episode on the Blu-ray. Basically, Roy... He's talking about Arrow, but to Thea, he's not telling her that that's who he's talking about. He says, he's talking to someone to try to get help, and yeah, she says like a therapist, and he says, yeah, kind of. I don't understand what he's saying half the time, but it's helping. Yeah, that's therapy for you. Not a bad scene. Probably just cut for time. And yes, let's see, what was the first scene of this episode? I think it was the part, was it water slapping? I think it might have been. And yeah, that's a good way. Certainly that is a major thing in this episode. Yeah, it really is an uphill battle. But by the end of this episode, Roy is making progress on controlling himself. And I like that, this time Oliver uses the same words, but it's a different... he's on the other, yeah, he's the one delivering them instead of being on the receiving end of them. So that was a fun... And yeah, the fact that, because it does make a lot of sense that, in addition to working for building the arm strength, that it would also, help... well, not necessarily help him develop control, but help test if he has control. It's very smart to use something that can't, like, better that he break the table and the bowl than, someone else's body, like he did with the guy. That was also, I think that was in the deleted scene where you know Thea says, you put a guy in the hospital, and he's like, yeah, he was harming prostitutes. So, but yeah, I think the yeah, and it's sort of exposure therapy. If he's gonna lose control whilst being asked to do something annoying, that doesn't bode well for... if because he is asking, get me in the field. I want to go up against someone, and yeah, this is yeah, so very nicely done. It's one of the major things going on in this episode is, can Roy control himself? Is it possible? Because you know there's the emotional stakes. We really don't want to see Thea sad by losing Roy. Whether to, for example, to him becoming violent, and yeah. And there's also the physical stakes, because, like, yeah, at one point he does throw Oliver. So that is the... yeah, um, very nicely done. The show tends to be really good at that, at making sure there's multiple kinds of stakes, like quite a few comic books as well, and other comic book media. But yeah, let's see, I think that pretty much brings us... oh, actually, maybe the first scene the prison? Never mind. Let's talk prison. So yeah, the moment that, you know, like, we, the audience, immediately clock it as, like, there's something going on here. This is not, you know, there's the thing about, oh, this genius held up a, you know, Yeah, right across the street from the precinct. You don't say. Sounds like he maybe wanted to get caught. And yeah, the thing about, well, there's a bum knee, so the machine is registering even though there are no strings or weapons on him. And yeah, he walks in, and Bronze Tiger, so happy to see him again. And yeah, the he explains, when and where, and says, one way or the other, like, this is the only way for him to protect his kid. And I do appreciate, so a lot of the time the show is exploring misogyny. I do think it is also important to just every so often also have, a good father, for example. And we do also see that in Lance, obviously, but I do appreciate that. And yeah, then he starts pulling out Blade, and yeah, that was holy crap. I was half expecting him to like take up. You're gonna need bus fare here, and I mean, I think the custom is to just sneak a file in through a cake, but I guess this isn't a bad alternative. And yeah, we hear later that he killed, what was it, like 10 cops on the way out. And I quite liked Felicity's line, the prison's better at keeping secrets than prisoners. Yeah. And I think, is that maybe the time where we see the, let's see. Yeah. So it was great when the Lances talk. No, please, Dad, come right in. Oh, I see the mate's been here. If we're gonna fight, I'm gonna need to crack open one of those. And he says he misses her. He wants to help, and he really does think that this is how to help her, but he does also lie to her. It's a really difficult situation. And yeah, really, really well done. I thought they did a good job of, it's this thing of like, because this is the kind of thing that happens in real life. Sometimes the first time someone comes to, a place where they get help, it's because they were, manipulated or outright lied to get them there. And yeah, I think that does. Yeah, and the thing about, maybe we could, have dinner together. I already ate. How about tomorrow? That is yeah. Presumably she didn't eat that much. And I think the let's see. Yeah, him talking about, we never used to just disappear on each other, no matter how bad things got, which also, reiterates she really is, it's just getting worse and worse for her. And yeah, I liked Roy pointing out, for several days now, he's been slapping water. And so it's again, that's part of the fact that it is really difficult to get Roy to control himself. This is after several days of this. This is not, the very first time. So that's also a good bit of information to include. And that might get us to, so the yeah, I forget what it's called. They mentioned it in some video. I think it might have been a curator's video. For sure, I didn't hear it in the recent Thought Slime video, Why is Andy No Afraid of Frogs? But I do recommend that video. I hope to aspire to Thought Slime's level of wit. I especially loved the stuff about ultraviolence and urban. Anyway, I don't remember what it's called, but the part where he like uses a staff to climb, yeah, it's so incredibly cool looking. And let's see, I think that let's see, right, I like the thing about, you hacked into the prison, and what did she think it was? Is that anger I hear? Pride. And her little smile, just wonderful. And the, let's see, I think that covers that scene. So we have the, let's see. I feel like there's been at least one flashback by the point I've gotten to in the episode. Yeah, the continued thing of, Sarah pointing out to Oliver, Slade is not going to take it well if he finds out. And she points out that love is the most powerful emotion. And the fact that, Oliver uses that to reach Roy was also great. And it's also just nice when a piece of media, there's a lot of American pieces of media that don't, they'll insist that no, like anger is, and yeah. I forget the exact findings, but there was like research into, and love was found to be even stronger than anger. And it's also an important message. A lot of teenagers watch this show and others like it. Yes, the, let's see, I think that brings us to, yeah, and we have the thing about, I had to put an arrow through his eye. Oh, like with the mask that we've seen several times on the island. And I think that does bring us to the, let's see, what was the next thing? Maybe the, I think it was around here somewhere. Yeah, Thea, is at home, like, what's with the fancy? And the little moment, oh, I'm going out to dinner with Walter. A date? Dinner. A dinner date. Just, Thea's so sweet. Just, like, this is 2 episodes in a row of her being, like, matchmaker, just, yeah. And the, let's see, yeah, and the thing about, like, oh, I mean, I could tell Walter that we could do it some other night. And Thea is like, no. You are going to get back with, I mean, you're gonna talk to him. And then maybe, that, yeah. And I think, let's see, maybe the next thing was, so the team find, where Bronze Tiger is going. I like the little crack about, that's a terrible nickname for, tigers aren't bronze. And the, let's see, I think that does bring us to the, yeah. So, he goes, and yeah, he's like, well, this Roy outright asks, you have to let me go face to face, toe to toe with someone. And they do a really good job of, because like Oliver is not used to being the one teaching someone else, especially someone who struggles this much with control. So very nicely done on that. Yeah, like it's probably a mistake, but something needed to change, and it's that thing of like, this is something, many of my fellow far leftists will, point out. It's very difficult to change if someone can't picture it, whether this is like a mindset or it's that point in the video, whether we're talking about capitalism. But yeah, it's Roy loses control. And that is why, Bronze Tiger gets away with the machine. And that was also great. I love the whole thing of like, they're walking through and, before they reach the garage, I mean, and, Arrow's like, it's probably best that he not hear about his son from you. In fact, it's probably best if you don't say anything at all. And don't touch anything. But the, yeah. And the thing about, this could kill hundreds. Oh no, it's going to kill thousands. Holy crap. Just, yeah. Fortunately for him, all Bronze Tiger needed was informed consent, and he's given it. So the, but yeah, really, really cool fight. And the, let's see, pretty cool when he uses the blades to open the electronic lock. And yeah, the thing about, why were you hired for this? It's a simple, smash and grab. And he's like, because of that. And yeah, Roy going off, and I did like him using his super strength to destroy the gun. He's taking away his weapons, both of them. And then he, yeah, Arrow is very frustrated, understandably, and yeah, it actually does go to, and I like dig pointing out, you did what? And yeah, the brief bit about, Felicity saying, and you ye of little faith, when I pointed out we should probably have an x-ray machine down here. Very clever, because it's like, you're not going to get an x-ray after being thrown like that, that's, yeah. And Roy outright threatening him, saying, if you go ahead, shoot me with another arrow. If you try to stop me, I'll show you some of that anger you're always so scared of. And I think, yeah, and we see, the ice pack being switched out was also a good way to show, yeah, he's, that's how bad it was that multiple were necessary. I think that brings us to the dinners. Let's go with so yeah. Turns out Walter was not thinking date. He, it was a different kind of proposal that he had in mind. And yeah, the thing about, you didn't invite me here for that. You got, oh. And yeah, like that is a very, very clever, because so it's very important to note. It's one of those things where there is some truth to it, and some of the way it's Republican propaganda. George Soros is not like picking, political candidates, forcing them upon people. He does donate some money, but there's a lot of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories when it comes to stuff like that. But it is true that a number of rich people will say, oh, we don't really like that candidate, so let's, get this other one. It's very fortunate that at least, I guess, I don't know if that's going to keep happening because Trump is affecting the press, but until recently at least, it is possible for journalists to track, large, large, no, donors who donate a lot of money. I forget, large amount donors or whatever they're called. And I'm not entirely sure where they're going to go with it, because like up to this point, Walter has seemed like a good guy. Yeah, I have more about this subplot, but I think I'm going to try to keep this as chronological as possible. I think that brings us to the second flashback. So let's see. I think that was when so they're, going around. They've got the tracker, which, doesn't work all the way. It I guess runs a battery or something. And like they find the way to the rest of the way to the cave, but Slade's already gone. And yeah, the thing about the coordinates and calculations, I was like, oh no. Like, yeah, that does sound like where Slade is at right now, and that's such a good way to again show how the characters, like, they really do go through changes on this show. In the first season, he was specifically worried that it would be used. Now he's the one using it, like, just, I mean, one can understand why he hates Ivo, but there's other people on that boat. Some of them are hostages, and he's gonna sink it because there's one person on there that he wants dead. Really shows how the miracle is is being a bad miracle right now. Very bad miracle. Is there a word for that? But the I think where does that bring us? So I guess right. The other dinner, dinner. Yeah, Laura was like, where are we going? I can't, I don't see a place to eat, and and he gets her to the building, and she, of course, immediately realizes, this is not a place to, yeah. And I mean, I don't know if they serve. It's probably not the nicest food there. Yeah, I know. Obviously, she's more worried about the duplicity and she's not ready to admit that she really needs help. And it's such a difficult, like, anyone who's had someone in their lives who's, gone through that will tell you it's so difficult to know what to do, because you can't help someone out of addiction if they're not ready to be helped out. You have to let someone else help you. And by the end of the scene, he explains, he reiterates, he's just really worried about her. And she says, and I told you I'm hungry. And she leaves before he has a chance to say, hi, hungry, I'm Dad. And the, let's see. Yeah, Roy talking to Thea, because like he has no idea that it's being sold, which at that point in the episode, neither did Arrow. he thinks it's going to be used in Starling again, and it very nearly is. And it's very nicely done there, because like as soon as it's being said, oh yeah, it's going to be sold, it's going to be used in Markovia, that has us thinking, okay, so it's not Starling, which is, yeah, it's not that I would be okay with it, obviously, but it's it makes us think, okay, it's not going to be turned on in Starling City. But then by the end of the episode, it has been, because he's like, well, dead either way. And the let's see, yeah, so he's trying to explain to Thea, and yeah, like she trusts him, but if he's not gonna give a reason, it's she makes a good point. And that's also something throughout this episode. Really, they do a good job underlining, a lot of women in real life as well. They just want to help the men in their lives, and it's really, it sucks that there are so many misogynistic men who see that and interpret it as, oh, she's trying to control me, ruin me. Ridiculous. I'm not saying it never happens, but the rate at which it happens is completely disproportionate to how often misogynistic men think it's happening. But yeah, he loses control again, and he starts hurting her. And as soon as he says, "I didn't mean to," she says, "I know." That it's, but yeah, it's yeah, it's really, really well done. And I think that does bring us to, let's see, we have the, okay, I forget if this is the place. Yeah, let's talk about it here. So yeah, Moira and Walter talking more about the idea of her running for mayor, and well, 43.6%, that's a decent number, but is it like people who would, the she points out, how is it, would enough people vote, compares herself to Charles Manson, like, and I like, I really, really like when Thea walks in, and the hug, because like she and Walter do still care about each other. They just don't see each other as much anymore. But the thing about, I was just talking about her running for mayor. Mayor of what? And as soon as Thea realizes, no, it's serious, like she is supportive of it. It's just she didn't, it wasn't where her head was at. And yeah, she says, well, I, my first vote would go for you. And let's see, I think this is about, let's see, right, yeah, I mean, so given when this came out, they weren't commenting on Trump, but they talk about, well, Blood's ideas would bankrupt the city in 8 months. I mean, so they weren't talking about Trump specifically, but yeah, this kind of like a candidate who swoops in and convinces a lot of people, but their ideas are terrible. And yeah, really, it's so yeah, when they were writing it, they weren't thinking about Donald Trump, but it is something that's happened before and probably will happen again, which is why we have to do what we can to prepare people to see through lies and demand more. And I think that does pretty well get us to the well, let's see, what is left at this point? So there's the part where I guess we'll do the yeah, so the flashback, so yeah, they find Slade and talk to him, and Oliver says, "There's something I have to tell you about Shadow." And we and Sarah are like, "Oh no." And it's like, well, what's Sarah going to be able to do to she gets some reaction shots, but obviously, there's only so much she can do to stop him at this point. And also the fact that he points his gun at Oliver, like, holy crap. And yeah, very clever that he, because earlier Oliver was determined, and we don't know if Sarah got to tell Slade the truth. We didn't know until this part if Sarah really did convince him, but yeah, she said love is the most powerful emotion, and so he uses that, and it is technically true what he says. Shadow didn't love him the way that Slade wanted, but she did really care about him. She went above and beyond to protect him. And I think that does... Yeah, and the fact that he does, like, very briefly actually, like... Yeah, it's really, really well done. I was not sure how, if they would be able to stop Slade, but yeah, thankfully. Let's see. I think that does bring us to the climactic act. Oh, right. Yes, a little bit more Laurel. So yeah, she goes to talk to Joanna. Nice to see her again. I hope this isn't going to be the last time, but I suppose it's not impossible that it will be. And yeah, she brings up the office space. Quite good movie, holds up largely. And we have that little bit about, if I didn't know any better, I think you were trying to talk me out of it. I do know better, don't I? And yeah, that's... holy crap. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I appreciate that it's not completely resolved by the end of this episode, because I suppose it's not impossible, but right now it's looking a lot like she is going to be barred from bars. And yeah, holy crap. Just... and I feel so bad for Joanna, because like she really is in a hopeless situation. Like, obviously she wants to help as much as she can, but they can't hire her when this kind of thing is going on. The what was it, disciplinary process. And I think this is a good right. I like, Oliver, how close are you to the bar? I'm pretty close. And yeah, he sees on the security camera, and I really appreciate, I'm not sure I really thought that much about it, but we've never really seen her just like out of control drunk. And we also see here she's a mean drunk. But yeah, that's helping show that she is losing control, a bit of the theme of the episode. And the yeah, the thing about, Thea Queen telling me to slow down, that's rich. Did you need to borrow my car? And yeah, like, clearly Laurel, like, she can't imagine not being a lawyer, a law talking person. And yeah, Felicity there to tell him, so the yeah, they found, because the watch, they found the place where they are, they have the device. And let's see. It looked like that guy at the bar had maybe um, put something in, which I guess into Laurel's drink, which I guess might be why she collapses. And then Sarah's there, and it's like, I don't know if this is going to be good or bad for Laurel's. But I get why, like, Sarah, appreciates, like, something needs to happen here. This is really getting out of control. And I 100% understand why she would think that this would help. Like earlier, I mean, it was just the fact that she was terrified what would, like, what was the line? Something about, like, Laurel would never stop looking if she knew that Sarah was alive. And, that basically, it's very nicely done. Because, like, at the time, we're like, I guess it could be a long time. But yeah, now as things are just getting worse and worse, yeah. And I think that does bring us, let's see, where else do we, what is left to cover? So there's yeah, so Moira says she is going to run, but, they have to keep the fact that Thea's father is Malcolm, not Robert. That has to be kept a secret. So I guess Moira might not be a Republican if she's actually thinking about the kinds of stuff that might get found out by the press if she runs for office. Do not make a drinking game out of how many candidates have whined about that, because you will not be okay. Yeah. Anyway, okay, I'm just one more thing on that because it amuses me. A particular candidate made some claims in a book that he wrote, and later, when he became a candidate, some journalists saw some of the most dramatic stuff from that book and went to talk to some of the people that were involved, and they were like, what? He wrote that? That never happened. Which is a good reason to maybe not lie. Or at the very least, if you're going to lie to sell books, maybe don't then run for office. At least not if you can't handle the truth coming out. Yeah, I miss Rob Reiner. I really do. Anyway, there's actually a movie made out of that book, and at least one of the really dramatic things is in the movie. I've read, I haven't watched it, and that kind of tells me that not that many people cared about that movie, and that just amuses me. They made, like, he tried to think of something really dramatic that, according to the people, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth here. According to the people that it supposedly happened to, they say it never happened. It was dramatic enough to get a book, get copies of the book sold, get a movie made. But the people that it happened to, I guess, didn't know about the contents of the book or movie and just assumed that he wouldn't lie about it. So, yeah. I think that does bring us to... hold on. Where were we? Was I... Did I... Oh, I like the part where, Oliver asked Roy, are you done? Or am I going to have to cut your finger off? That movie is something else. But yeah. Moira, she says, we have to make sure that OBGYN doesn't talk. You're not sounding that much like... Okay, that doesn't make her sound like Malcolm Merlyn's pawn. Makes her sound a little bit like Malcolm Merlyn himself, but that's the thing. Like, is she like what did she have in mind? Because like there's ways that aren't like horrifying, but the way that she phrased it, it was wonderfully ambiguous, because like she did what she did to protect her family. If she still is thinking, like how much has she changed, is yeah, very, very nicely done. Does she have affluenza? And I think that might bring us to the yeah, there's a firework before. Some people buy too much, can't wait for New Year's Eve. Oh, right. For apparently that's not every country. Here in Denmark, fireworks are for New Year's Eve. Yeah, not necessarily like... I feel bad for the dogs and such, but I am way over explaining this. Moving on. I think that does bring us to... Okay, at this point I just feel the need to say I myself have not been near fireworks for like a decade or something. Anyway, I think that does bring us all the way to the right, yes, the so yeah, they they're at the docks, and Roy followed Arrow. Arrow was thinking not to bring Roy because like it didn't go so well last time, but yeah. And the like thing about, so you're paying me 10 million. How much are you gonna make? Oh, 3 times that. I did half expect him to say, well, then I want a raise. And yeah, the thing about, it looks like your partner abandoned you. He's not my partner. I hired him to do a job, and he stabbed you in the shoulder. Yeah, that was really, really cool. I very much enjoy Arrow and Bronze Tiger fighting. It's so, so cool. And yeah, Roy gets in on the action, and once again, temporarily loses control, and then we see, Arrow's arrow does not, it's not opening the shipping container, and there's less than a minute. Hollywood loves its countdowns. And so he does the one thing that he hadn't tried yet, and trusts Roy with the secret identity. And it does make sense. It was really nicely done, because earlier he said, because yeah, Roy mentions, he says, my girlfriend, and Oliver is a little too caught up in it, and he slips up and says Thea instead of your girlfriend. And then Roy is like, how do you know? Don't, you don't get to say her name. And yeah, I mean, you can understand, because like, I mean, maybe Roy's standing there thinking, are you going to put an arrow through her leg too? So just... And then there at the end, he's like, yeah, this is how Arrow knew that Thea and Roy are together. And let's see, because yeah, I don't know if I've explained it well enough. Essentially, Arrow sounds like a stalker. It sounds... So what, you're like watching me? You know who I am around, and and Roy is at that point thinking, how do I protect Thea? And then when Arrow reveals he knows about Thea, it sounds like he's maybe a threat to Roy, I mean. And yeah, so there at the end, he disengages the voice changer, takes off the mask and hood, and yeah, explains to him, you can protect Thea, but you have to use your strength to rip open that door so we can destroy the machine. You know, violence against a person is not going to protect right now. And that's such an important thing. There's a lot of young cishet men who have to learn that, And listen, when I was younger, like I bought into a lot of this. There's so much media geared towards young men that says that violence is the solution. It's something that we have to unlearn, and yeah, I really appreciate them doing that here. And yeah, they managed to stop the machine. And let's see. Yeah, I will say I'm glad that usually I get why, considering the range, he doesn't feel the need to use the bow, but if he delivered every arrow like he delivers it to the inside of the shipping container, I don't think the show would be quite as visually compelling. And yeah, loved the wrap up. The wall comes to and he's like, I didn't think they allowed conjugal visits, and it doesn't phase her in the slightest. She is not like, because like he's trying to mess with her. He's like, yeah, and it is like there are a number of characters when they first meet Amanda Waller, the first thing they say, they don't think that she looks as intimidating as they later learn that she actually is. That is something. Yeah, it's a recurring theme. And the thing about, is the name supposed to mean anything? No, it's highly classified. And yeah, putting a team together. What kind of unit? It's actually more of a squad. I can't put into words how much I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, because I have a feeling I know what squad she's talking about. And yeah, I had heard before I started watching the show, the Arrowverse in general, that at some point that squad would appear. I've heard bits and pieces about Arrowverse over the years. Honestly, a lot of it, there was a while where I wasn't sure if I was going to watch it, so it didn't really stick in my memory. But that was a thing where I was like, you don't say. And I think it pretty much gets us to the let's see, there's a tiny bit left, but what is it exactly? Let's see. I yeah. So you know, Roy is brought in, and you have the thing about, how many people know this? Too many, but these are the only two. See what you did there. I'm gonna say that's called a homonym, homophone, I think. He'll be well read and the other kind of read. It's a homophone. Yes, homophone is the right word. Don't even pretend like you never used Tim Minchin lyrics to remember very specific details like that. If you don't, you should. But yeah, and yeah, Roy gets to meet them. And right, I also like the thing about, processing. Well, I processed my way through, I forget what exactly, but I recognize the word she used. It's definitely it's ice cream. And let's see. I think that does pretty much cover. Yeah, really looking forward to more. Next episode we'll do very soon. And yeah, I guess we're halfway through this season now. Yeah, really, I can hardly wait to see what, yeah. Oh, and yeah, this episode was another example of the aftershocks of the season 1 finale. You know, now people know that Malcolm Merlyn had a, earthquake machine. Stands to reason that he had the prototype somewhere. And, because you wouldn't want to use the prototype as the final thing. That's, a lot of times in science, you'll have a prototype and then later you'll make another. And like the buyer doesn't care, so the, it seems like. But yeah, yeah, I quite liked Roy meeting the rest of them, and Roy is like, so do you have a name? Like, and Felicity is like, actually, and Oliver's like, Felicity, stop trying to make Team Arrow happen. It's not going to happen.